What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Devy Royale YouTube channel. Is it DeVon Achane time? We are going to talk about that and a ton more on today's episode of the NFL show here on the Devy Royale. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel while the intro plays. All right, guys, we had an eventful week 3 of the NFL season, and we're coming to you after the first game of week 4. So I guess let's lead off with that. We're gonna get into Devon Achane and the weird pronunciation changes that guy just implements at random every couple of weeks. But what did you think of the Thursday night game, Randy?
It was definitely fun to watch. Really quiet office today here in Wisconsin. No one really talking about it, but it was definitely what we want to see every week from the Lions offense to start off. They kind of stalled out a bit there for a little bit and then picked it back up. Usage wise, everyone's really upset about the Jahmyr Gibbs usage. I definitely understand that, but it looked like, especially early on, that they tried to get him involved in the passing game quickly, and Quay was just all over it. It wasn't working, so they just went back to the ground and pound, which really isn't Jahmyr Gibbs' strong suit, and Montgomery's strong suit for sure. And we saw that to the fullest extent with most likely his best game of the season. On the Packers side, we saw them struggle finally. They struggled last week against a real team in the Saints. They would have lost that game if Derek Carr was healthy at the end, I think at least.
Yeah.
And then they actually faced a team that could continue to put up points, and they couldn't keep up this week. They are going to get a little bit healthier, though, on offense, and I think there were still some bright spots there. But we saw what we wanted to see from the Lions for sure, and we saw, I think, a close representation of what the Packers are for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Jordan Love posted the worst QBR rating of the entire season. So it was worse than Daniel Jones in week 1, which we all remember. So Jordan Love pretty bad. He had an okay second half, but then a terrible pick to end the game there. So I'm curious to see where this Packers team goes. I think they're going to have ups and downs. They're super young and inexperienced, which is not something we've said about the Packers in a long time. All right, let's go over to DeVon Achane. So we know what happened last week, right? Miami scored 70. Both running backs went crazy. DeVon Achane had 203 rushing yards. Currently, Raheem Mostert is the RB1 in fantasy football, and DeVon Achane is the RB6 in fantasy football. But the question I want to ask today is it DeVon Achane time? Is he going to start to eat into more of Raheem Mostert's work? Was this a one-off thing? What are we thinking for Achane this week?
So I think there's a bit of a temper of expectations because obviously with the blowout, he was getting more carries on the stretch. Ahmed out, Jeff Wilson still in the IR. It was kind of just them two, and he did capitalize. All props to him. He showed his talent, showed why everyone wanted to draft him after this selection was made, and I think he really fits this offense. However, Mostert is the guy that they want to lead this backfield. I think unless he gets hurt, I don't see an uptick for Achane. Sorry, he's changed it 3 times in my head and I can't figure it out. But so for the biggest thing for me is I do think he gets an increase in touches for the next couple of weeks. Jeff Wilson coming back, though, is where I get a little bit more shell-shocked. Not necessarily that he will be off the field entirely, but he'll be used a little bit more sparingly as a little bit more of a gadget player for this team, I think. This team's going to try and run the ball a lot. They just put another receiver's injured for them, but they're going to get Waddle back. So there's going to be a focal point on run the ball and taking the deep shots with play action. So I think Achane can continue to rise, at least for the time being. I definitely think he's playable this week, but that's mainly because the Bills have given up the most yards per carry this season to running backs. So it's really hard for me to sit him after last week's game, as well as Mostert. I think both can be very good assets. I'm just not sure Achane's getting the touchdowns this week that he got last week.
Yeah, and 2 of the receiving touchdowns were on just they were feeding him the ball, and I think that I don't necessarily think that that's going to continue. I think that was very much so part of the game plan, was to get him involved, get him into the end zone, start to build his confidence. But I do think moving forward, I still think Raheem Mostert is the number one on this team. He's shown an immense ability to, lead this backfield over the last few weeks. It's really been over the last 2 seasons. I know there was that spurt last year with Jeff Wilson kind of coming in and taking some of his touches, but I don't think Mostert was all that healthy during that time frame. And so we now have a healthy Mostert. We have the most creative offensive play caller or offensive scheme designer in the NFL, I think, even more so than Kyle Shanahan. So I'm excited for these two running backs. I would start both of them in fantasy this week.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move over. So we don't know what's happening just yet. So Deshaun Watson missed practice pretty much all week. He was taking mental reps one day because he was resting his throwing shoulder. But then the next day came around and he was on the injury report with a shoulder injury. And then he didn't finish the week with a practice. So there was some speculation that the Browns are prepping Dorian Thompson-Robinson to get the start this week. Mary Kay Cabot from the Browns went and asked Deshaun. Deshaun said, "No, I'm fine. I expect to play." But that's not kind of the vibes that are coming out of Cleveland. So I guess this might be an irrelevant conversation by Sunday. But if Dorian Thompson-Robinson gets the start, do you think that the Browns have a chance to beat the Ravens this week?
From what we've seen from the Ravens so far, yes. Oddly enough, the offense for the Ravens has looked good, especially in the adaptations from what we kind of saw last year with the new play caller. I have been encouraged by it, but with the lack of consistent running back play, mainly because of injury, the offense has kind of stalled out at different times. And there's been wide receiver injuries. I believe it's Odell and Bateman are out this week. So this is really going to rely on Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers, which is seams and short routes only. So I do think that this Browns defense can clearly contain that. And then on top of that, they have the speed at the linebacker position this year to contain Lamar a little bit better than they have in the past. And we saw DTR not do astounding things through the air, but move the ball very, very consistently through the preseason. So if it does come down to him, or if Deshaun takes a hard hit and they just have him sit for the rest of it just to make sure his shoulder isn't, like Derek Carr and might be out for a couple of weeks, just try and keep him healthy. I think Thompson-Robinson can win the game, especially if the goal is 17 points really to win, which has kind of been what it has been against the Ravens this season.
Yeah. For what it's worth, Dorian Thompson-Robinson in the preseason completed almost 64% of his passes for 440 yards, average of 7.6 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, was a threat on the ground as well, but had a ton of big-time throws per Pro Football Focus. He looked really, really good in the preseason. Do you think there's a chance that this offense runs better with Dorian Thompson-Robinson than it does with Deshaun Watson?
No, because the playbook's halved at best.
Fair.
There would be a lot of improvised plays, I guess, which is what we really haven't seen from Deshaun in the last 2 seasons, which kind of was a bit of a strong suit beforehand. So maybe that aspect would be a little bit bolstered. But I do think there would be a heavy emphasis on running the ball, which would kind of one-dimensionalize the offense a bit, which is not good when you go up against the Ravens.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do think that the Browns have a shot to win pretty much every game this year, simply because that defense is absolutely absurd. The pieces that they added to that defensive front specifically have really opened up Myles Garrett to be even better, which is an insane thing to say. Grant Delpit on the back end of that secondary. They, are missing a corner each week, it seems, but they plug and play, and everyone seems to be on the same page for the first time in Cleveland Browns history, is what it feels like. So, I still, no matter who the quarterback is, I think I would pick the Browns to win this game, simply because I think that they're going to give that Ravens offense some fits. So, all right, I don't know why I put this on the show sheet. I don't necessarily want to talk about this game, but they're calling the Broncos and Bears matchup this week the Bag Bowl. That's the Chicago media is kind of suggesting that. I think Greg Bragg said it first. But the Bag Bowl, meaning whoever loses this game, all the fans have to wear a bag over their head the rest of the season because that's how bad it would be to lose to one another. Uh, Randy, what's the outlook for the Broncos versus Bears? Broncos just gave up 70 points. The Bears give up 70 a game, it seems like. I think the Chiefs could have scored 70 last week. Do you expect this to be a different type of game? Do you expect these offenses to kind of get rolling?
I do expect the offenses to kind of get rolling this week. Both these defenses have played atrocious all
Yeah.
season, which is really disconcerting because the Broncos defense really what held this team together last year. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but they've looked real bad. And I do think this will be kind of a bit of a get right game for both offenses. I think both rushing attacks will be able to do something. I think if I want to see the switch for the Bears offense to let, one of the best running quarterbacks in football run the ball. That'd be a nice change of pace. And I think they could really dominate this week with that kind of aspect. Um, it, I don't expect a shootout, though, necessarily. I do think both offenses should be able to move the ball, but I think there's a good chance it's like 24-20.
Yeah.
And I don't know who.
Yeah.
I'll pick the Bears just for the love of Justin Fields, but
It's tough. Everything's going wrong in Chicago right now, but everything is also seemingly going wrong in Denver. So it's this is a really tough game to predict. I will say they did try to get Justin Fields involved in the running attack last week with simple read options, and he gave the ball and made the right reads because defenses know how to defend the read option. Get creative with your running game, man. Like you still have to be able to use Justin Fields as a runner, and you need to be creative. There's none of that happening in Chicago, though. No creativity on either side of the ball. Matt Eberflus is like, yeah, we're going to bring pressure with 4. No, you're not. You can't. You don't have guys that can get pressure. So maybe try something else. I don't know. We'll see how this goes. Russell Wilson has been hit as much as I think any quarterback in the league this year. He's not getting hit this week. So we'll see what Russ looks like when his jersey is literally completely clean by the end of it. So
we'll
I
see.
did bet. I bet on the Bears. So
Yeah, this is. I'm curious if this is gonna be the game that's on because I was in Wisconsin. Packers already played. It's
it,
really kind of up between this and Minnesota.
I think you guys get Minnesota. I saw a real map today. There was a joke map floating on Twitter where it was like 90% of America gets the Broncos versus Bears, but it wasn't. It wasn't real.
Take your medicine and like it, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't real though, and I think you guys get Minnesota if I remember correctly. But
That'd be
we'll
a lot
see.
better, but we'll. I'm not hoping. That's what we got red zone people. So that's the
It's
only
true.
time I want to see this game, pretty much, though.
Yeah. Well, neither team will probably be in the red zones despite all of this. So it's going to be terrible.
Hope not.
Yeah. All right. Let's preview some games. So the 3 games we're going to talk about this week: Dolphins at Bills, Rams at Colts, and Patriots at Cowboys. And when you say, are those really the 3 best games? Kind of. These are kind of the 3 best games. This slate isn't my favorite. To be completely honest, I think this Dolphins at Bills game is the most intriguing one. I think we could have talked about Kansas City versus the Jets, but I don't necessarily want to talk about Taylor Swift, and I feel like we would have to. Uh, so yeah, let's get into the Dolphins at the Bills. The Bills are 2.5-point home favorites in this game, despite Miami putting up 70 points last week. The over/under is 53.5, despite Miami putting up 70 points last week. Miami's offensive line is banged up. I believe they're going to be missing 2 starters. They've been without their starting left tackle for a couple weeks now. So I'm not necessarily thinking that that's going to be a problem for them based on how they've looked. On the other side of things, I know DeMar Hamlin is set to make his season debut because Jordan Poyer is out. So that's kind of the big news there. Randy, what are you thinking for this game? Do you think it's right that the Bills are favored?
Um, yeah, I do mainly because they're basically not.
Yeah.
The general rule of thumb, for those that don't know, which I assume most people do, is -3 for the home team is like the average, and anything better means they really think you're going to win. So, in a sense, while they are favored, it's basically a pick 'em, and I think that's completely fair. I think very easily this Bills offense can move the ball on this Dolphins defense. I hope James Cook gets in the end zone for the love of God, even though he keeps getting vultured. But this Dolphins offense should definitely be able to move the ball. Like I said earlier, the Bills have been the worst allowing yards to running backs. I think both these guys can really eat. There's no way McDaniels sees that and says, okay, well, now I got to throw the ball 60 times. He's going to run the ball a ton. They're going to make some big plays through play action. I don't think the Bills really have the speed to keep up with these receivers. They're going to try and limit the big plays like they always do, but that's the issue with guys like the Dolphins. When you have two receivers like that, unlike what the Chiefs had with Tyreek, where they were able to contain that offense, this team has two guys that can break away from short and make huge plays, as well as two athletic tight ends, and then the two running backs. So it's not going to be like those old Chief games, but even those were shootouts. So I do think this is a game that has the over, but I will pick the Bills. I don't know what it is. They haven't looked amazing this year, but it's hard for me to pick two over Josh Allen.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, my argument for Miami is that the odds are better. Like I did the Miami money line,
Yeah.
although I think the Miami money line is actually minus money as well. So it's not really great odds, but I will say so. While the Bills prevent big plays and they traditionally are good at doing that, and they created a lot of turnovers last week, Tua is killing teams in the middle of the field. He is absolutely cooking with anticipatory throws. He's just hitting these crazy window throws too. But the way Mike McDaniel schemes it up is all of those window throws end up being yak plays too, even if they're 10, 15, 20 yards down the field. That's the incredible part about this offense. When you start to talk about the way they motion people to make all of that happen, it's insane. It's an insane offense. I don't think the Bills are going to be able to stop it, but I do also have questions about Miami stopping Josh Allen and that attack. I think it's going to be a big Dalton Kincaid day. I'm excited to see what this looks like. I think Dawson Knox probably gets in the end zone. I'm pretty comfortable starting every single piece that I have from these two teams in this game.
Yeah, I think just from a strictly fantasy outlook, I think you pretty much have to. For more of like a DFS, I mean, all these guys are going to be the chalk.
Yeah.
But we saw the last couple weeks the chalk has kind of hit anyways. You kind
Yeah.
of have to have them, or else you're not going to win. I do think both these teams kind of really strive it out. And honestly, the biggest question mark for me is just James Cook at the end zone. Other than that, I think everyone else is almost guaranteed to have a good day. Gabe Davis has been pretty consistent of late, so that means he's probably going to get one catch, but that's the only real issue I got.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm going to take the Dolphins straight up, actually. You know what? I'm just going to pivot and say Tua goes on the road and cements himself in the MVP conversation, which he absolutely belongs in right now.
Yeah.
All right, next game. Rams against the Colts. Anthony Richardson's back. I want to lead with that before I give any of the other numbers because that's all that really matters. Colts are favored because of that. Over-under is 46. Colts offensive line is banged up. They'll be missing 3 starters, potentially 4, I think, in this game. Bernard Raymond, I think, has COVID. I can't remember all of the different ailments, but that could be problematic against Aaron Donald. And this Rams defense has been a little better than I anticipated this year. And on the other side of things, their offense is cooking. They're making Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell look like legitimate top-tier wide receivers. It's a very dink and dunk offense, but it's worked, and they are moving the ball. I'm intrigued by this game. It's kind of a mid-tier over-under, but I think that the Colts have shown that they can move the ball basically on anyone, and they remind me a little bit of the Eagles last year. What do you think for this game, Randy?
Shocker there. It's almost like they have that coach.
Right.
This is one of the most interesting ones to me, and I do think it deserves to be kind of like the top 3 games of the week. It's just we've seen both teams kind of have really good offensive drives, different days that looked really fluid, and then other days already that have kind of looked stagnant after a little bit. Obviously, both these teams that are down week last week offensively, necessarily scoring wise, but they were just in a little bit tougher games. Obviously, the Colts without their starting quarterback still getting that win is always nice. I think this is definitely a sneaky over game. I think Richardson has showed us they're going to run the ball. He's going to be efficient, and he's looking well above what we thought he would be through the air. The passing weapons have looked a lot better than we thought they would be. And on the other side, obviously, the passing weapons have been a lot better than we thought they would be. So Higbee just got a contract extension, even though he hasn't really done anything this year. Kyren Williams is getting every snap possible. I think you can start almost everyone in this game, and I think it's going to hit the over. For the fun of it, I'll pick the Colts just because at this point, they're probably winning the division.
Yeah, I mean, they're leading the division right now. I do think that this Rams team is going to give them – I think they're going to give Anthony Richardson a little more trouble just simply because of that offensive line being banged up. I think Richardson – this could be one of those Richardson games where he might spray a few throws that turn into turnovers. I think he's been pretty lucky on that side of things. He sprayed a few, but they're simplifying things so much for him that I don't know if he can make those crazy mistakes. So we'll see. I think I'm going to take the Rams. I also am taking the over, though. Sometimes I judge my over-under bets by how comfortable I am starting the fantasy players and vice versa. And I am fairly – I would start Zach Moss in this game. And not that I have Zach Moss, but I would absolutely start Zach Moss if I had him. And then, like you said, Kyren Williams, Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell, Josh Downs even is one of those guys that I think I would start this week. So
he's the only question mark for me, just simply because of the uptick last week with a different quarterback. Not that he hasn't been involved in the offense, but there was definitely a clear uptick last week with Gardner. So that's the one I'm kind of I'm happy to do it, especially in DFS as a skinny stack with Richardson, which with that kind of quarterback you kind of have to. But with him for fantasy, if he runs it in, he can throw 2 picks, and I don't really care. I still get a plus there. And he's run it in every game,
I know.
And he almost had an enormous day 2 weeks ago before he got a concussion. He was dominating. I think we can have that again, even with the poor offensive line for this week. Honestly, I think that almost intensifies the need to run the ball against this team, to not have him sit back there and make mistakes. So, I think I'm definitely full send on everyone except maybe Downs, where I'm let's see. See one more.
I hesitate on it. I'm not going to start Downs over anyone crazy or even my against the grain fantasy start, which we'll get to here after this last game. Yeah. A lot of rookies.
It's against the grain, buddy. We're trying.
I know.
I'm scrolling past 30 every week trying to find a guy I love, and it's been working. But
yeah, it has been. You've had some good calls. Okay, let's talk about this last game. I don't care much for this last game, honestly. So Patriots at the Cowboys. Cowboys are 6-point favorites. Over-under is 44. I just put on the graphic, Mac Jones, dirty. He hit Sauce Gardner in the nuts. And then, nothing's happening from that because, of course, it's not. Because Mac Jones he gets away with it all throughout his entire career. But on the other side of things, the Cowboys did not look good last week. And so I do think that this is one of those games where if that Cardinals defense could give them trouble, and if the Cardinals offense could give that defense trouble, I'm curious to see what this game looks like, because this feels like one of those trap games where Bill Belichick at least covers the spread simply because he's a smart cookie. What do you think?
Yeah, especially if they can get some corners back.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the last couple of weeks have missed every Jones in the NFL. So I'm hoping, except Mac. So I'm hoping they can get those guys back. I think they'll try and attack CeeDee Lamb and try and take him out of the game, and really force Dak to make plays. Ferguson's looked decent. Other than that, though, Cooks and Gallup haven't been super impressive. Tony Pollard's been a little bit stagnant. Obviously, he got sniped from a touchdown last week. I don't think that's his fault. But this Patriots defense, we know they're going to try and take your top guy away. That's clearly CeeDee Lamb. And the offense for the Patriots has been weird. This is a Zeke revenge game. He just got his most work of the season last week. I don't see that stopping this week. I think he's going to be trying to punch into this game. Yeah, and I don't. Mac Jones. I mean, like of the Duke North Carolina rivalry, we both know I'm more of a Duke fan. He feels like he went to Duke. He's
He
got that
does.
Grayson Allen effect.
Yeah.
It's I don't like it on the football field. I don't like it on basketball either, but it's just like, man, it's hard to like that guy. It just is.
Yeah. I can't stand watching him play, first of all, because I hate his play style, but I just don't like dirty players. Uh, I will say, so Zeke last week, he was arguably the better running back between him and Ramondre. Still didn't eclipse 40% of the snaps. I'm curious to see what that looks like this week. I think he's probably the snap leader in that backfield this week simply because of the Dallas thing. And Bill likes to give his guys, I'm sure Zeke will be extra motivated, but he likes to give his guys the ball when they're in those types of games too. So
Yeah,
I'd start Zeke, I think.
they've been inching closer to the 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and yeah, we saw what this Cardinals team did against them last week. I think the Patriots offense can do similar things just without the speed weapons of the Cardinals.
Yeah. I'm going to take the under in this game, and I'm going to take the Patriots to cover. Where are you going?
I'm definitely taking the Patriots to cover. It's the line that's getting me.
It's really it's small. I think if the Patriots covered, that's why it hits the under. But
Yeah, it's just one of those, like, I did not expect the Cardinals to score so many points last week. The
I know.
Patriots offense didn't look terrible last week. I'll
Yeah.
take the over with the Patriots cover. It's just
Okay.
it's gonna be right on the line.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. All right. Before we go, we're going to give one against the grain fantasy start. If this is your first time watching or listening to this show, these aren't players that you would start on a weekly basis. These are kind of guys that we think could have one of those big weeks, finish inside the top 24 ish, and be a flex option for you that might be better than the guy projected a few more points. The reason I say this, there's a guy on Randy's team that is projected more points than the guy that Randy picked that I think is going to have less points than the guy that Randy picked. So, Randy, who did you pick?
Yeah, I went Marvin Mims.
Yeah.
I've been trying to go sneaky on these wide receivers, and it's been working out. The least amount of targets, the most amount of yards. Marvin Mims is absolutely killing it, especially if you're in a league that's going to give you extra points for special teams. I mean, you're playing the Bears. You tell me you can't return a kick against the Bears. I think that's very easily doable. I mean, I'm not guaranteeing it by any means, but it's definitely not out of the realm of possibilities for him this week. He's just super fast, super. Uh, he's been looking really crisp with the route running. He's been ultra efficient with his targets. Russell Wilson this week coming out talking about him makes me even more encouraged. He's a guy that we were really high on in the draft process. A guy that I stashed on a lot of teams here, and there's a lot of teams that, especially with some of the running back injuries, where I'm trying to force people up into that starting running back spot. That I'm like, do I really want? I mean, even like this week with the possibility of Deshaun Watson sitting, like there's got to be leagues where I'm questioning, like especially Elijah Moore, but like even Amari Cooper against him, it's going to be tough. I definitely think I'd lean more Cooper. But man, if he's going to get 5 targets this game, that's almost guaranteed 100 yards, it feels like, and probably a touchdown. He's been elite and electric with the ball.
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote a bad word at you when I got into the show sheet and saw that you picked him because this was going to be my pick too. So the caveat with my actual pick is that I wanted Randy's pick. So we are both in on Marvin Mims Jr. this week. So go start him. My pick, however, Quenton Johnston. When I say this is as against the grain, I think, as you can get. I know Mike Williams went down. There's been a lot of talk that it's Joshua Palmer up next, and that's pretty true. Joshua Palmer has run a ton more routes. He is, gotten 5 more targets on the year. And that's the point I wanted to bring up is Quenton Johnson, when he's in the game, is receiving a target 1 every 5 routes he runs. They force feed him the ball. They are trying to get him work. And Brandon Staley came out this week and said, hey, Quenton Johnson is going to have a huge opportunity. I'm not certain that it's going to be Josh Palmer that gets an uptick in snaps. Josh Palmer already had a role in this offense. So why would you take someone who has a role already and put them into a different role when you have a guy that can kind of comfortably slide into that Mike Williams role? Mike Williams was working in the slot and doing some of the things that Quenton Johnston does really well. I am comfortable starting Quenton Johnston this week as a dart throw. I'm not saying that you're going to get a ton of production from him. He literally has like 5 catches all year. But I do think that this could be the breakout week. This could be the week where we see, okay, this is his fantasy ceiling. I'm excited to play Quenton Johnson. I am in a couple leagues, so I'm riding and dying with this pick. So
we are full on a theme here with rookies that have barely touched the ball, but have been electric when they have. I'm definitely that it was kind of the weirdest thing for waiver wires this week, where you're sitting there like, okay, well, Palmer very clearly is being used. I don't think Quenton necessarily I think there's a good chance he can step up right away and do something. We just got to see it. But I do think by the end of this year, he's going to be very clearly the 2 and be very involved in this offense. Let's see if he steps up week 1. I think he can. Either if both of these guys could just get on the field a bit more, which they both seem to be, they're going to be valuable weapons, especially in your flex, because the second they've touched the field, they've been efficient. So let's see how this works, and let's keep the theme going for the rest of the year, hopefully.
Yeah, 4 touchdowns between the 2 of them, with 3 probably going to Marvin Mims, to be honest.
I didn't say that, but let's hope.
Yeah,
it's definitely switching my DFS lineups right now.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, that'll do it for this episode. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe, drop a comment, let us know what you think. Tell me why I'm stupid for starting Quenton Johnston this week. I know Jeff Bell probably will drop a comment and say that if he watches all the way through here.
Classic Jeff.
Yeah, right. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, but also head over to YouTube, drop us a like over there as well. And I'd be remiss not to mention Kevin just did an awesome 2024 rookie video that is getting a lot of good feedback. Go check that out. If you're playing Dynasty Fantasy Football, you probably are subscribed to this channel. And if this is your first introduction to it, subscribe to the channel. We do Dynasty content like that. That video is awesome. He kind of talks about values, what you can get for picks and things like that. So make sure you go check that out as well. Randy, do you have anything to add before we bounce?
Let's roll, Steph. This is a weird week, college football and NFL football wise. Definitely wish there was a red zone for college football already. For the same reason, I'm definitely watching red zone almost exclusively on Sunday. This is a weird week, not a lot of great games, but definitely watch the Dolphins Bills. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah, game of the week for sure. All right, thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you guys next time.